Hello students, welcome to Bridge Academy Grade 9 Biology Unit 3 Tutorials. Lesson 20, Osmosis in Plant Cells. Today we're going to learn about osmosis in plant cells. We'll see how osmosis helps plant cells stay strong and healthy. And we'll see what happens when there isn't enough water. Let's get started. Water is essential for all life on Earth. But how do plants use water? One way is through osmosis. You might remember that osmosis is the movement of water molecules across a semi-permeable membrane from a region of higher water concentration to a region of lower water concentration. Semi-permeable means that some molecules can pass through while others cannot. In other words, only water molecules can pass through the cell membrane. In this lesson, we'll focus on how osmosis helps plant cells stay strong and healthy. Plants need a way to keep their cells firm so they can stand upright and support themselves. They also need a way to regulate the amount of water in their cells. Osmosis helps with both of these functions. Osmosis is driven by differences in water potential. Water potential is a measure of the tendency of water to move from one area to another. The higher the water potential, the more likely it is for water to move into that area. So when there is a higher water potential on one side of a membrane, then the other water will move from the area of higher water potential to the area of lower water potential until the water potential is equal on both sides. When we talk about the water potential of a solution, we're really talking about the water potential of the solvent, which is usually water. In this case, the water potential of the solvent is determined by two factors, pressure and solute concentration. Pressure can either increase or decrease the water potential of a solution. Water has a higher water potential when it's under positive pressure, like when it's inside a plant cell, and a lower water potential when it's under negative pressure, like when it's outside a plant cell. Solute concentration also affects the water potential of a solution. The more solutes there are in a solution, the lower the water potential. So how does osmosis work in plant cells? Well, let us imagine a plant cell that is placed in a solution that has a lower solute concentration than the cell's cytoplasm. This solution is said to be hypotonic compared to the cell. In this scenario, there's a higher water potential outside the cell than inside. Because water always moves from an area of higher water potential to an area of lower water potential, water will move into the cell. Once inside, the water fills up the central vacuole, which is a large fluid-filled sac that takes up most of the cell's volume. The pressure from the water in the vacuole pushes against the cell wall, which is a rigid structure that surrounds the cell membrane. The pressure from the water in the vacuole is known as turgor pressure. And just like any pressure, it can be measured in units of force over area, such as pascals or psi. Turgor pressure is important because it helps the plant cell maintain its shape and rigidity. If there were no turgor pressure, the plant cell would basically be a bag of water and it would just collapse. Turgor pressure is also important for plants because it helps them maintain their upright posture. If a plant cell loses water and becomes flaccid, the plant will wilt. But what happens if a plant cell is placed in a solution that has a higher solute concentration than the cell's cytoplasm? In this scenario, the solution is said to be hypertonic compared to the cell. Because there's a higher solute concentration outside the cell than inside, there's a lower water potential outside the cell than inside. So water will move out of the cell and into the surrounding solution. As the water leaves the cell, the pressure in the vacuole decreases and eventually the vacuole may completely collapse. When a plant cell loses all of its turgor pressure, it becomes limp and the plant wilts. If a plant cell is placed in distilled water, which is pure water with no solutes, the cell will gain water and become turgid. However, if the plant cell is left in distilled water for too long, the cell may eventually burst. This bursting of plant cells is called cytolysis. So what happens to a plant cell that is placed in a solution that has the same solute concentration as the cell's cytoplasm? In this scenario, the solution is said to be isotonic compared to the cell. Because the solute concentrations are equal inside and outside the cell, the water potential is also equal inside and outside the cell. So there's no net movement of water into or out of the cell. In this situation, the cell reaches a state of equilibrium and the plant is in homeostasis. As you can see, the condition of the plant's cells has a major impact on the health and appearance of the whole plant. When the plant cells are turgid, the plant is firm and upright. When the plant cells are flaccid, the plant wilts. You may have noticed that we haven't talked about what happens to the solutes in the solutions. That's because when we're talking about osmosis, we're assuming that the solutes don't move through the membrane. Let's review what we've learned. Osmosis is the movement of water molecules across a semi-permeable membrane from a region of higher water concentration to a region of lower water concentration. In plants, osmosis is important for maintaining turgor pressure and keeping cells and the plant healthy. A plant cell placed in a hypotonic solution will gain water, become turgid and firm, and have high turgor pressure. A plant cell placed in a hypertonic solution will lose water, become flaccid and wilted, and have low turgor pressure. A plant cell placed in an isotonic solution will not gain or lose water and will remain firm. Now try these practice questions to check your understanding. In each question, choose the best answer. Question 1. Which of the following solutions is hypotonic compared to a plant cell? A solution with a lower water potential. B. A solution with a higher water potential. C. A solution with the same water potential. D. A solution with a lower solute concentration. Answer. The correct answer is D. A solution with a lower solute concentration. Question 2. What will happen to a plant cell if it's placed in distilled water? A. The cell will burst. B. The cell will become flaccid. C. The cell will become turgid. D. Nothing will happen. Answer. The correct answer is C. The cell will become turgid. Question 3. A plant is wilted because its cells have lost turgor pressure. What can be done to restore the turgor pressure in the cells? Place the plant in distilled water. B. Place the plant in a hypertonic solution. C. Place the plant in an isotonic solution. D. None of the above. Answer. The correct answer is A. Place the plant in distilled water. That's all for this lesson. Thanks for watching. Check out these other great lessons. Like, share, and subscribe for more videos.